We'll do it live. We'll do it live. Good morning, Sunday morning. Good morning, Sunday morning. That's Nancy Pelosi. I'm just really impressed with Donald Trump right now. I'm just really impressed with Donald Trump and the Trump admin. And I'm impressed with everybody. I'm impressed with Pete Hegseth. I'm impressed with everybody. Pam Bondi. I'm just impressed with the entire everything Trump is doing. I'm impressed with it, and I'm so happy to see Donald Trump as the president. I think it's amazing. I think it's amazing, and I think that we are actually witnessing the foundations for a golden age. When Trump says he's going to bring in a golden age, he means it. Like there's literally a plan to bring in a golden age for America, and we're seeing that playing out right now. And the thing that impressed me most is what's going on in Panama. Because can you imagine being an American and you, let's say, under Joe Biden or under Obama, let's say you go down and you're on vacation down in Costa Rica or Panama, and you go down there and you see Chinese billboards everywhere, and you see Chinese military operating, and you see Chinese industry down there. And you're like, what happened to America? What happened to my country? What happened to, like, that's the frame of mind we've been in for so long. What happened to America? Where'd America go? What happened to America? That's been the frame of mind of most Americans since for a long time. I think it's been going on for a long time because it really started with the Rockefeller family setting up this whole World Trade Organization network, which China is a part of, and really handing off so much stuff through various presidential terms of, Bush, the first Bush, and then Bill Clinton, and then George Bush, and then Obama, and it was just one after another. And all that's coming to an end, and it's so nice to see it coming to an end. So, what we should do as Americans is really rally behind the Trump admin right now and really like dig in our heels against China. And I'm noticing that all these anti-war, left-wing anti-war communist media that I've been paying attention to because I was against the Ukraine war that we're fighting. I don't want to fight with fighting the Russians is stupid. That was the stupidest thing. But notice if you look at who were the people that wanted to fight the Russians, it was the same people that were allied with China, right? All the same people in all these administrations that were allied with China, right? And all these big companies that are allied with China, they wanted us to fight with the Russians. And they're allied with the European Union too, which is not European. Not European. The European Union is anti-European. It's against European people. It's racist against European people. So that's it's called the European Union. It's a bunch of anti-white, anti-European people, and they are white, but you got to understand they're tied to a cult, a syndicate actually of cults, a syndicate of a sodomite cult based in Rome called the Vatican, which I call the Empire of Sodom. The Empire of Sodom based in Rome, which is the Vatican. And the Vatican, in my opinion, is just as bad or worse than Beijing. Just as bad or worse. It's always been horrible. Rome has always been the enemy of the European races since they started a war with the Greeks for the territory in the east. Maybe they weren't always. Maybe there were times where they weren't so bad, but they've been attacking Europe the whole time. I mean, they've always attacked Europe. The Romans did, and they've always been aligned with shady mafia type organizations. But anyway, I don't want to talk about the Romans today. We're talking about the Chinese particularly and their influence in Panama, and it's like you look at like Trump and Trump declares the Gulf of Mexico the Gulf of America. So that's the Gulf of America now, right? That's the Gulf of America. And the passage through the Gulf of America, through the Panama Canal, well, that belongs to America now. This is good. See, I was a little worried at first, but this is really good. I was looking at Pete Hegseth and all these other people, and I was complaining about them for being Zionists and stuff, but Pete Hegseth is doing a good job. I'm really impressed with what Pete Hegseth has done in Panama. You know, we should control Panama. We should control all of Central America, and we should control all of South America, and we should have alliances between us in Central America and in South America, and we should run all of it for our own benefit, and Canada. And that doesn't mean we have to own it all, but we need to be in charge of this zone. And we need to get rid of the Roman Catholic, Vatican, Jesuit organizations that are all over the place over here. They're just as insidious as the Chinese. And they're allied with the Chinese. It's really weird. I really noticed that when the COVID stuff happened, how Rome was like an epicenter of it. And remember how they had all those coffins, and it was like a big fake thing they had with coffins, and the media was in Rome and they were taking pictures of all the coffins. And it was like from some other thing. I don't want to go back and relitigate the whole thing, but if you go back and you see it, there was a lot of fake news coming out of Rome with regard to that whole virus thing. And they were, and remember how it was Rome was working with the Chinese and against any anti-Chinese stuff. And Rome was like, they were having these things where like showing Europeans hugging Chinese people in the street. It was all so weird. It's the same type of trash, garbage propaganda that they promote here in America. It's just weird. It's just weird. So I'm really happy with what Trump is doing. Now, I'm anticipating that as we head into Monday, we're going to see some more volatility in the markets. I'm anticipating more volatility in the markets. The Chinese have no leverage with their attempts to put tariffs on U.S. goods. It does nothing because they see, like I'm watching these guys. They're saying, oh, well, they're going to tariff American goods going into China. We don't sell anything in China. We don't sell anything in China. They can't. What are they going to tariff? There's nothing we're sending there that they're going to tariff that's going to do anything to us. It's going to have no effect. The one thing that they can do that harms America is when they do these massive dumps of U.S. treasuries, which causes the bond market to get all out of whack. And I'm not going to give you a lecture on the bond market because I don't really know that much about it, other than when they start dumping all their treasuries, it causes the interest rate for bonds, with the private companies, I guess, that run the bond market, what they charge for the interest rates, what you get. Does that mean it's good if you want to invest in bonds, I guess, because then you're going to get these really high rates. But I guess the government doesn't like it, and governments don't like it because I guess they need to borrow the money. So they don't like these high rates. So I guess it hurts the governments, and it kind of threatens the whole bond system when the rates go shooting up like that. But that's one of the things that the Chinese can do to counter America. Anyway, let's listen to some of these. So I've been paying attention to what the communist. You got to stop, like whoever these people on the left are, they're communists. I'm for totally extricating America out of the communist. I'm for extricating America and all of Europe completely out of what I've deemed the conservative communist combine, the political combine of conservatives and communists working together to form governments. I'm for ending that entirely. And I've been noticing you've got these communists that call themselves Democrats, or they call themselves whatever, the left or liberals or whatever they're calling themselves. They're just communists. And they're all pro-China. And they've continued, even though Trump has pretty much ended the war over Ukraine. I mean, it's still, he hasn't ended it, but he's like pulled. I mean, it's like a major de-escalation, which is good. They're still complaining about him, and they're complaining about this. Now they're all backing China. They wanted to see BRICS set up. They wanted to see China become the new superpower. That's who these people are. That's who the left is. That's who all these people like Danny Haifong and this Wolf guy that's a whatever, these like different, these weird left wing, that all they do is complain about everything about America. That's all they do. And so, because America was making some big mistakes by attacking Russia, that was a huge mistake. It was huge. It was a huge mistake for a couple of reasons. Number one, because it lended more credibility to the far left, because it made the conservatives, the retard conservatives, obviously dumb and stupid and like, what do you guys are idiots. Like, no one can support this. This is so stupid. Nobody wants a war with Russia except for John McCain and Lindsey Graham and Victoria Noodleman and that whole weird cult of Jewish mafia. And they're just sucking everybody into it. Like, that was so dumb. Nobody wants that. Mark Levin wanted it. Dennis Prager was always agitating against Russia and Putin, and Ben Shapiro, like that whole cult of Zionist weirdos. And it's like, nobody wants that. The right wing that's been developing since the Obama administration, with the help of people like me on a small scale. Actually, I don't know that it was small. A lot of my propaganda has made it out through the internet and other people. We've all said no to that program, and so they keep pushing it, and then they end up with nobody to back them up. And then we're now sitting here going, well, yeah, these people on the left are making sense. That was bad, because once you start lending credibility to the left, now you're shifting everything over to China. The left is allied with China. The communists in America are allied with the Communist Party China. The communists in America and the capitalists in America, which is, as I've been telling you, is the same thing ultimately, set up China for this very purpose, to become the manufacturing base of the globe, the global system. It was the Rockefeller family, the Rockefeller Foundation, as the leaders of the Republican Party in America, which includes the Democrat Party, which was dissolved and destroyed after the Civil War, so it doesn't really exist. But we still call it the Democrat Party. It's really the Republican Party has two wings. It has the conservative wing and has the socialist communist wing. The socialist communist wing calls themselves Democrats as a sneaky way to continue to undermine the Democrat Party, which was founded by Thomas Jefferson, which no longer exists. They set up China. They set up China. They set up China. Facebook has been working with China. All these tech companies that are working with China, Apple, all this stuff, Google, Apple, all this stuff, they're all working with China. This was all set up by the commercial system to set up and work with China. It's been terrible for America. And these are all the same people that have been anti-Christian, anti-German, anti-white, the BLM, the LGBT agenda, the Antifa agenda. It's all been allied with global capitalism and their commercial communist global imperial system through China, that uses the American military and the Pentagon as like an instrument of this global thing. All that seems to be coming to an end, and I support its demise through Donald Trump. So let's just look at some of the shit that I see on here. Let's take a look at some of these guys in the media. They're all still really worried and scared. And, you've got here, interview worse than Biden, Judge Napolitano's verdict. So here's Judge Napolitano. I always kind of liked him because he was like a kind of libertarian type of guy. He's totally allied with the far left communists now.
Napolitano is the host.
Here, let's listen to this idiot. This is
His Eminence.
So here's what's George Galloway. So now a lot of people are allying with this George Galloway is pro Brit. Okay, George Galloway wants to be the leader of Islam in Ireland or whatever that district he is a part of. He's part of the UK, but it's like the Irish part. He wants to be the leader of Muslims. He wants to be the leader of communism and Muslims, and because he's Catholic. See, that's what's so weird about this thing. And they're allied, and they want to see BRICS. See, it's the Catholics allied with the it's like the communist Catholics allied with the Muslims allied with the Chinese, right? And I was kind of I did a video, I was kind of criticizing Trump for I was worried that he was going to start wars with Iran and all the stuff for Judaism. But the truth is, at this point, I see that everything he's doing does, in fact, in the long run, benefit America. It does benefit America. And he attacked the Houthis. They were attacking U.S. ships. And now with the Trump admin, he's attacking U.S. ships. Those ships are going to be open to America. Like, we have to put America first for real. That means around the globe. America first everywhere. There's no reason to submit to any other people anywhere on the earth, ever. It's stupid. It's stupid to try to submit to these people. But let's listen to this guy, this communist George Galloway.
Judge Andrew Napolitano is the host of Judging Freedom, a must-watch podcast, and he's a former New Jersey Superior Court judge. And I saw someone lamenting the other day and concurred. A great pity that it was Roger Stone, actually. A great pity that Trump had not appointed Judge Napolitano to the Supreme Court. But in that event, he wouldn't have been here on the mother of all talk shows. So it's an ill wind that bears nobody any good. Your Honor, Judge Napolitano, wonderful to see you.
We've been friends and collaborators for a long time. You were on my show recently. The numbers went through the roof. The Constitution authorizes the Congress to raise taxes, not the president. A tariff is a sales tax.
Okay, so here he is complaining about tariffs, right? Judge Napolitano is on with this communist Muslim Catholic. He's like a Islamo-Catholic communist. That's what they are. They're all like this. And they're complaining about Trump's tariffs. Trump's tariffs are going to wreck China. Look, I'm predicting that I don't know that Trump is going to do this, but this is what, if it were up to me, China would no longer exist. China would just go away. There would be no Communist Party China. There would be no China. There would be a Taiwan. There would be Taiwan ruling over all of East Asia, and it would be an American base. And there would be American ships all throughout there. And it would just be American. Like, there's no reason. You look at India, okay? You look at India. You look at all the plastic shit garbage that's just flowing through the rivers in India. Why allow them to rule anything? They're destroying the environment. They are destroying the environment. As far as I can tell, it's our people who are responsible enough to be able to use petroleum products like plastics and recycle them and not damage the environment. Like, if there's anybody that could responsibly use petroleum products, it's our people. It's not anybody else. These other people dump garbage like right into the river. It's crazy. And it just pollutes they're like literally polluting the planet and destroying all the wildlife. And we have too in the West, and in fact, but I think that we could actually be the ones that prevent it. That's one of the things that really bothers me about like Southern California. They do a pretty good job of abating pollution and garbage around here. However, you have all this beautiful wildland, right? And they just keep developing it and keep developing it and keep developing it. And then they just bring in foreign people here to come live here. And instead of having wildlands, you just have traffic, you just have cars, you just have roads, and they just keep replicating roads and traffic and freeways and cars, and they just keep replicating this. And there's no reason to. Like, there's no reason to do that here. There's no reason to bring people here from East Asia and bring them to California just to make more cars and traffic and freeways and tear up all the hills and give it away to foreign people. It's a stupid program. It's idiotic. It's an idiot. It's a complete waste of resources. It's a complete waste of all the land. It's a complete waste. So anyway, let's listen to these people.
Okay, they gave him authority to impose this tariff in the case of an emergency. And then they defined emergency as a sudden and unexpected event which adversely affects national.
So here you got Judge Napolitano litigating on behalf of China. This is how these communist left-wingers are. And I don't think Judge Napolitano is not really a communist. He really is more of a constitutional libertarian type of guy, right? He probably would make a good Supreme Court judge. But why litigate on behalf of China? Why are you so worried about tariffs against China? China should not even, China as it exists today is an invention of the Rockefeller family and that whole network. And it shouldn't even exist. It was created by America and it should be dismantled by America.
Security or economic prosperity. The so-called emergency was the American, as stated by Trump in his executive order, George, was the American imbalance of trade. That's been the case since 1934. So it's hardly a sudden and unexpected.
See, just all they do is complain about the tariffs and complain about Trump. It's like, dude, shut up. We're in a war, right? We are in a war. We're finally getting some footing here. We're finally taking back our stuff. We're finally grabbing, we're finally going back and grabbing back the Panama Canal, which belongs to us. And that'll be good for all. As far as I'm concerned, we should just take, like, all of Central and South America should be open to us. The Baja Peninsula, that should all be run by America. That should all be territory that's developed for Americans. All of it. And we should be able to build new cities in Central America that benefits our people. Because I'll tell you what, I mean, there's so much gorgeous land down there. Oh my God. That's why they built pyramids down there. That's why the pyramid builders went down there, because it's sunny, the air is clean. You can grow really good food down there. It's just beautiful. It's perfect. It's perfect. What we need to do is here's the only way we're going to be able to survive in the future. Dismantle the whole BS Catholic race mixing bullshit thing. That doesn't mean there won't be some harmonious interaction between the races. That's fine. That's good. It's the thing of like it's the totalitarian race mixing and integration regime that was brought in after the Civil War and into the 1960s and throughout the beginning of the 2000s by people like Obama and the whole B'nai B'rith Anti-Defamation League, the whole post-war destroy the white race stuff. That's the thing that really ruined civilization. That's why we got to the situation we're in. There can still be harmonious. There can still be harmonious relations between the white race and Hispanics and African Americans and Asian people. That's all fine. It's just that we need to say no to the "you're bad, you can't exist, you can't own anything, you can't build a city, you can't do anything, everything you do is wrong." And the left is still doing this. The left is still doing this. That's why I'm saying we need a complete divorcement from these people on the left and in the communist movement of the Republican system. But I don't know how much of Judge Napolitano of complaining about tariffs do you want to hear?
the event.
Here's
So there's
some
no
more of it.
legal basis. for
Blah,
what
blah,
he's doing.
blah, blah,
Can the
blah.
Congress impose tariffs?
Shut up. That's all I have to say about that. Now, who else do we got? So that was Judge Napolitano, right? What else do we have? Here's what else do we got? We just got a lot of complainers about everybody likes to say that Trump's going to destroy everything and we're all going to lose and here's another one. Here's this other guy. So I constantly see Scott Ritter going on this show. This is another communist. I don't know what the race of this guy. I think he's Iranian. It's dialogue. Here's another communist show.
We know that Iran, Russia, and China had a meeting in Moscow on April 8th.
Exactly.
What they were trying to coordinate, they were trying to negotiate, to talk on.
This is very, very important, Ima, because it's a sequence. It started, I would say, almost 2 weeks ago with a meeting in Beijing that was practically secret. It was very discreet. It was not publicized at all. There were no leaks. And I managed to get some information via
This
diplomatic
Pepe
sources.
Escobar, a communist.
This is when the trio and Moscow. And now, in this postmodern era, we can say that probably for the first time in the past decades, the convergence is practically 100% between Tehran and Moscow. And this is reflected by their official policies in terms of interacting with the rest of Asia.
Okay, good. So you've got China, you've got Moscow, you've got Iran converging together. China wants to, for instance, build a canal through Europe. Did you know that? They want to build a canal that goes right through Macedonia into Europe. The Chinese. Dude, this shit is crazy, but this is what I'm talking about. The Chinese want to build a canal that they can take right through, because they're going through the Red Sea and their ships aren't being hit by the Yemeni fighters, right? The Houthis. So the Chinese are sending their ships right through the canal. The Houthis aren't shooting at their ships. And then they go through there, they go into the Mediterranean, and then rather than going through the Black Sea, going up into Turkey through the Black Sea, they want to go right up through Europe. So they literally, the Chinese want to carve a big canal that just goes right up through Europe and goes right into the waterways into Europe. The Chinese want to do that. And the stupid European Union, which does not exist for the benefit of the white race or the European people, would probably let them do it, because all they care about is money. That's all they care about. They only care about money. These are the worst people in the world. And the way they stay in power is by backing communism, because the communists are the shock troops, the forces that they bring out to attack people that say, hey, instead of just making everything about money, let's make it about our people. See, that was the big crime of Adolf Hitler. The big crime of Adolf Hitler is saying, instead of making everything about money, why don't we make it about our people, and we'll develop our people, and we'll have art, and we'll have we'll develop our, we'll prevent our people from things that are harmful, and like vaccines that they thought were dangerous. I know that I know I'm not supposed to say that, but that was one of the things that the Germans were opposed to. Dangerous vaccines. That was a big thing that they promoted against. So anyway, what I'm saying is Pepe Escobar, all these are I get you. I don't want to see all these wars for Zion. The problem is the reason why we've been losing for so long is because it's like the post-war thing. So Trump may end up going to Russia and being part of their Victory Day celebration because it was Russia with the United States and France, kind of. No, Russia, United States, and England defeated Nazi Germany, and so Russia always has this big thing on May, right? Will Trump go and be part of that this year? He might, and that would be nice, okay? But at the same time, this is why we've been losing. This is why the West has lost, because we've been going on and on and on and on with this Holocaust narrative since the end of World War II that has demonized specifically the Germanic race and everything associated with the Germanic race, which is the white race in general. And that has been going on. And it started with the end of World War II with being against the white race, and then it just kept going and going and going by the people that instituted that as the narrative coming out of World War II. And those people that instituted that are the reason why China rose, why America fell, why the whole country got flooded with drugs and perversion and criminality, and still hasn't extricated itself from that yet. Trump's working on it a little bit, but the fact that we still play into this stupid World War II narrative that Hitler was a genocidal monster, that's just a lie. That's just a lie. And it's a harmful lie that has destroyed Western civilization. It's a harmful lie that's destroyed references. Now that doesn't, see, here's the thing. Not hating Hitler doesn't mean you want to kill all the Jews. No, that's not what that means. It just means that there's a bunch of bullshit with regard to World War II. And so a lot of the things that they said about Hitler and the National Society, that was all lies. And we don't have to believe that anymore. And we can have good relations with Jewish people. We can have both. That's the only way forward, as far as I can tell. If you keep demonizing Hitler and keep building these Holocaust museums all over the place, it's just going to continue the decline of Western. So that was the core of the psychological decline of Western civilization, is the Holocaust Museum. We need to get over that. And it's not true. That's the thing. It's all lies. These people existed in this last Biden administration. The same people. They keep pushing this thing. That's what brought about the end of Western civilization. That's why we're in the situation we are now with China taking over the Panama Canal. It's totally connected to that. It's totally connected to that. That's why Facebook is working with China. That's why they're setting up shop. That's why all these companies have been running China. That's why the Jewish mafia helped establish the Communist Party in the first place. So we can have both things. We can say the Holocaust stuff needs to come to an end, all the propaganda, and have good relations with Jewish people. We can have both. We can have both. We don't have to have this discrepancy. So anyway, what else do we got? So, but that's the thing, is otherwise the left keeps winning.
The official Iranian policy.
This communist stuff is like, oh, we're for BRICS, we're for China, we're for Iran, we're for this stuff. Look, it's all because of this connection between the Washington, D.C. and the Holocaust bullshit, and Rome and the Holocaust bullshit. You know, the Holocaust museums are controlled by the Pope in Poland. Like, the Pope runs the Holocaust bullshit museum to brainwash everybody. It's run by the Pope. You know, the Pope runs it. It's run by the Pope. The Pope runs a big brainwashing camp where you get lied to about Adolf Hitler. It's run by the Pope. That's the truth. That's the truth. See, we can say the truth and not hate Jews. Just because something is true. Just because Hitler wasn't as bad as everybody wants to pretend, that doesn't mean we have to hurt Jews or hate Jews. We can like Jews. We can say Jews are cool. and Hitler was fine. Actually, what he did, like he had some beefs with Jews. Okay, so what? You realize in European history, everybody's fought with everybody, right? The British fought with the Irish, and the British fought with the all kinds of people. Like the Americans fought with the British. Do we hate the British now? No. Did the British commit horrifying crimes against the American colonies? Yes. Do we demonize them for the rest of eternity? No. So the whole idea that we have to demonize our blood relatives because of some horrible crime that occurred during the war, that's stupid. The only people that insist that we keep doing this for some reason are these Jewish mafia organizations. We have to keep demonizing the Germans forever. It's stupid. It's stupid. It's stupid. It needs to end. And it's why the West has been destroyed. It's why the West was destroyed. So anyway, what else do we have on these? I keep watching these communist things. Here's Catherine Austin Fitts. Trump dancing to the banker's tune with Paul Buttigieg. Oh, Butnick. Sorry.
The federal government has been operated as a criminal enterprise on a financial basis, period, way outside the law. It was enough money to fund a separate civilization. Our plan had been to win the proxy war by hybrid war in the Ukraine, get a hold of the Russian resources, and maintain our hegemony against China in a unipolar model. Guess what? We failed.
That's true. And the problem is, but I don't see that. Here's the thing. The problem is all this wasted time and wasted resources and wasted military efforts against Russia when we could have just had an alliance with Russia. Russia's like the same as the Russian people are just like Americans, dude. That's the thing. The Europeans are just like Americans. The Russians are just like Americans. It's like we should all be in one big alliance, not with Chinese. We have these other people forming these alliances with Chinese and with all these other countries. It's stupid. It's stupid. It's stupid. Hopefully, we're extricating ourselves from that. I would love to see the United States government make a deal with Russia and have it be the United States and Europe and Britain and Russia all together ruling the world and working together to bring about a civilization that exists industrially in a way that doesn't harm the environment. That should be the goal, because we're the only people that can do it. Just look at how they dump garbage directly into their rivers in India. It's disgusting. They can't be trusted with plastics. For some reason, Indian people in India can't be trusted with plastics and petroleum products. They just turn everything into garbage. Same thing if you look at right now on the border of Mexico and America, they're dumping sewage into the wildlife sanctuary that's on the border between San Diego and Mexico. They're just dumping raw sewage into a wildlife sanctuary. These people are idiotic. So it's really going to be up to us to create a world where you can have civilization and have industry and have a clean, healthy environment where the wildlife is protected. We're the only ones that can do it. The Chinese aren't going to do it. The Indians aren't going to do it. The Africans aren't going to do it unless we guide them towards that. We need our role with Africa and the people in Africa should be to help establish systems of civilization that can exist in a place like Africa where you have all these wildlife. Same with North America, same with South America, same with the Eurasian territories. There's just tons of wildlife that needs to be protected while we develop industry and civilization. That should be the goal, is to be able to have systems of civilization that can maintain very large populations without having a negative impact on wildlife. Now, making that standard actually creates jobs, right? Making that the standard creates more jobs because now there's a lot of work to do to maintain a civilizational structure without damaging. See, now you have this other ingredient introduced without damaging the environment. How do you build systems of transportation that don't damage the environment and have very low impact on wildlife? How do you develop systems of industry and shipping and mining and different things that or forestry using lumber that have very minimal or low or very low impact on wildlife and the environment? That is so important. That is so important. And so when you make a standard like that, now it actually takes more work and actually takes more money. But what that does is you have a bunch of people that you can put to work doing that. And we have large populations all over the world that need something to do. That should be the thing that they're put to work doing. And the only people that are going to be able to do that would be the Americans and the Europeans with the help of the Russians over the planet. America and Europe, and then Russia over the East Asian territories with the help of America. We have interests over there too. So anyway, who else are we looking at here? So here's another one. Everybody's just complaining about all these left-wing communist groups are just complaining about Trump and America and the tariffs. Here's another one. I like this guy.
Been creating content for about 5 years. I've been following Macro since 2012. And outside of March of 2020, I don't know when we've had a time when there has been more uncertainty. You can love the tariffs or you can hate them, but the bottom line is if you're a business owner and a large majority of your inputs are imports, there's a time lag there. You can't just, if you got XYZ input, there's probably a reason why you're importing it.
Wah! We're at war, stupid. All your Chinese crap can sink to the bottom of the ocean as far as I'm concerned. As far as I'm concerned, Trump isn't going far enough. I like what Trump's doing. And he's allowing some of this stuff for Apple and stuff to come in without the higher tariffs because we need it, because we don't produce it here, which is stupid. We can make everything we need in order to live. We don't need China. We don't need anybody, actually. The only thing we could use them for, and all that extra labor in China and India, is exactly what I just said. Developing a system of civilization that require that you create a standard for very low impact on wildlife, and in other words, because that takes more work and more labor. Well, you have all this excess labor in India. You have all this excess labor in China, and they can be put to work for us. Making a global system with Europe, with actually Europeans, not this fake European Union that's run by our enemies, but for the European people, with the British people and the Celtic people in Ireland, with the Russian people, and we all work to build a system of civilization that has very low impact on the environment. And because that costs more money and takes more work, well, you have all this excess labor. You have all this excess Chinese population, all this excess Indian population, all this excess African population. They all need something to do. Well, how about build a civilization that doesn't have a bad impact on wildlife? But anyway, all these guys that are complaining, you got George Gamm and all these people that are complaining about the tariffs. As far as I'm concerned, there shouldn't even be a China. China should not even exist. Beijing shouldn't exist. None of it should exist. It should just be an American base called Taiwan, run by Americans. China should become a colony of Americans, where Americans go and have more land to go live on, and China should just disappear, and India should just disappear. Actually, there should be no India, there should be no China, There should be no Malaysia, none of it. There should be no Philippines. It should all just disappear. And it should all exist for the benefit of America and Europeans. And that's it. That's it. Taiwan should become an American outpost of our new territory. That's it. What do we need China? All the Chinese crap that's being shipped over here on every single day, that should all be sunk to the bottom of the ocean. It all belongs at the bottom of the ocean, unless it's toxic, in which case it doesn't, because that'd be bad for the environment. So it just shouldn't even be sent here in the first place. We don't need all that traffic coming in to Long Beach Harbor. We don't need a Long Beach Harbor. We need a beautiful wildflower meadow by the sea where cattle's grazing. Beautiful, delicious cattle. That's what we need. Grazing by the sea in Long Beach. That's what the Long Beach Harbor should be. It should not be for Chinese at all. And no plastic should be developed in India. None of these countries that can't responsibly manage plastic petroleum products shouldn't be allowed to have them. They shouldn't be allowed to use them. There should be very strict regulations on who gets to develop and use petroleum products, because they're dumping them into the ocean because they're stupid. They're not smart enough to be able to manage petroleum products like plastic. And it all ends up in the rivers. It ends up in the ocean. And if that's the kind of population you have, then you're not ready for plastics, and you shouldn't be allowed to have them. So there's that. And all these people that think there's going to be this big rise of China, there isn't going to be a China. Here's this other guy. This guy really hates Trump. Who's this guy? The wolf guy.
To provide a remarkable array of mass services, unemployment insurance, a mechanism that protected them from having to use their money for their own efficiency. That's a decision of where can we make the fantasy. I would guess in other empires, as they declined, they began to appeal to their gods, to their fetishes, to their fantasies, because they had nothing practically workable left. We are borrowed up to here with our 35.
See, this is another one of these. He's Richard Wolff, another communist guy. We were in decline when we were listening to your group, right? Your network that set this whole thing up. But we're not going to be in decline anymore. We just took back the Panama Canal. We're getting rid of China. We're getting rid of BRICS. It's all going away. There's not going to be a BRICS. There's not going to be a BRICS. There's not going to be a China BRICS thing. That's all going away. That's going to be gone. You're watching some volatility in the markets and you're like, see, America's doomed. No, it's not. China's doomed. There won't be a China. China is finished. Now, as far as I'm concerned, there's tons of Chinese shit all over California and all over the West and all over the Southwest into Arizona and Nevada and all over the place. All that needs to go. All that needs to go. All the Chinese crap and all the Chinese holdings in America, those all need to be dismantled. All of it. It all needs to go. There needs to be no China. Everything needs to be America first. America first. America. We don't need China. We never needed China. The people that needed China were these global mafia gangs. They needed China. The people in the Anti-Defamation League, B'nai B'rith, that established the Chinese Communist Party under Mao with the United States government, with the CIA and the Jesuit system, they needed China. We never needed China. We never needed China. We will never need China. We never needed the B'nai B'rith. We've never needed the Jesuit order. We don't need any of them. Everything needs to be for America. America first. And all the Chinese holdings in California and all across the West and all across America, they all need to be dissolved. All of it needs to be dissolved. We need to take back everything. We took back the Panama Canal. We need to take back Long Beach Harbor and just send all that shit back. Just send it back. We don't need it. And then we make Taiwan the new capital of East Asia. And then we just dismantle all of China. Period. And it just disappears like dust. Blows away. That's all we should do. And we should stop this stupid war in Ukraine with Russia. And that Russia and America will be friends. It'll be Russia and Germany and Britain and America in a big alliance, a big global alliance with Australia and Canada and New Zealand and Greenland. And Argentina and Brazil without Lula, the Jesuit agent Lula. You gotta understand, man, everything you've seen with these traffickers, human traffickers, drug traffickers into America with all these Latin American prison gangs, trafficking drugs, trafficking humans, trafficking children. It's all run with the Jesuit system that's all operating out of Central and South America. Lula is backed by the Pope. Sheinbaum is backed by the Pope. Joe Biden was backed by the Pope. The judges who are siding against American sovereignty, against Donald Trump, against that tried to take out or did successfully get rid of Bolsonaro in Brazil and install Lula. That whole system of judges, they're all backed by the Pope. That's all the Jesuit, Pope, Vatican, Roman system. That's a huge threat. And they're setting up their system, which all it's going to end up with is more misery and with Chinese coming in and buying stuff. Like they're opening the gates to China, the Romans. And so that's what you had. That's what you have operating throughout South America, Central America, and North America, and Canada. Biden was backed by the Pope and the CIA. The CIA is allied with the Pope. The CIA is allied with the Pope. And 100%. That's why they installed Joe Biden. Joe Biden was an instrument of the Pope, and Joe Biden was totally bought off by China. Because when you're dealing with Rome, you're dealing with basically like a cuckold organization. It's a homosexual, cuckold, race mixing, sodomite organization. That is Rome. That is Vatican. That is the Vatican. Why anyone supports that makes no sense to me. It's idiotic. The Vatican is a race mixing, cuckold, homosexual organization of sodomites. That's what it is. That's why it is like the whole LGBT rainbow movement. You think it's coming from all these other places. It's not. It's just that's the Roman system. That's their agenda. It's masked because it's a deceptive organization. It's the Roman system is rooted in deception. It's because they're sodomites. Because they're sodomites, they root everything in deception. So the whole LGBT thing and the whole BLM thing and the whole Antifa thing and the communist stuff, all that stuff is run by the Jesuit system, by Rome, with the labor unions, AFL-CIO. I already did a video on that. AFL-CIO, an international union, the whole system of unions that are international, that are in America and that are in Canada and that are in Europe. That's a whole network that provides the Romans with a population, a demographic base to carry out their programs. And it's part that it's the unions, it's the courts. They're involved in the courts. They're involved in the legal system, and they're working with the B'nai B'rith. So that's their network, and that's how they destroyed Western civilization and brought up the rise of communism because they set up a global system through their commercial enterprises, and they need a big manufacturing base to do this. And they picked China. They picked China as their global manufacturing base. So they took us to this. They took us here. They brought us here, and they're not necessarily willing to let us go. So they got rid of Bolsonaro and they put in Lula, and they got rid of Trump that last time around and put in Joe Biden, and they put in the whole communist system in China, and they're the ones going after right-wing politicians in Europe who are just like milquetoast right-wing, women. The right-wing groups are so milquetoast they're putting women in as their leaders because that's how weak they are. And even that's too much. The Roman system won't even allow that much to go forward. A right-wing woman, you can't even have that. So anyway, Trump's doing a pretty good job. He's doing a really good job. I'm very impressed. I'm sure there'll be some things that I disagree with him on, but ultimately, I'm very impressed with Trump, and we need to escalate America first. It needs to escalate. It really needs to just escalate. There's nothing better going for this planet than America and the white race. There's nothing better. There's no plan B. If you think there is, you're an idiot. If you think there's a plan B to the white race, because what did they say? What have they been saying since the Obama thing? Just let the other races run everything. Why do we need these white men running things for? How about some other people? That was the whole thing. That's the Roman bullshit propaganda. That's the Roman bullshit propaganda. That's the Chinese propaganda. See, why have the white people? Let's have somebody else do it. Let's have the Chinese running it. Let's have these other races running it. See, the whole plan has been a racist plan from the beginning. And it was put in by the B'nai B'rith Anti-Defamation League. This is what caused all the hostility between white people, American people, and European people, and Jews. This hostility doesn't necessarily have to exist. You look at, there's people in the Trump administration that are doing a great job. They're doing a really good job. Stephen Miller is doing a great job. I'm really impressed with the job he's doing. I have no thing. So there needs to be some kind of disconnect between this ADL B'nai B'rith weird cult that's just totally anti-white racism shit that they've been doing for a long time, starting with the Anti-Defamation League when they tried to get that pedophile, rapist, murderer Leo Frank off the hook. Remember that when they tried to get Leo Frank off the hook? And to this day, they demonize him. And some stupid people who I like Tucker Carlson, who said that the ADL started out as a good organization. No, it didn't, Tucker. You lie. I mean, I like you, Tucker, but you say stupid things. You say stupid things like that. You say stupid things. Leo Frank is a rapist and a murderer, and he tried to pin it on a black guy. And it was the Ku Klux Klan that sided with the black African guy because they knew he was telling the truth. Because the Klan isn't as bad as you think in some cases. I'm sure they were bad in other cases. Who did the Klan mainly target? Republicans. Well, the Republicans were horrible. The Republicans have been horrible for America. Republicans set up China. The Republicans overthrew Russia in 1917. Don't believe me? I'll just read you this article. You don't believe me? The Republican Party overthrew the Tsar in Russia and brought in the Union of Soviet Socialist Republics, the communists, which came in and exterminated millions of people, just like they're doing with the whole thing in Ukraine today. It's the same thing. It's the same thing because Trotsky was a Ukrainian Jew from New York who worked, I think he was from Brooklyn, no, he's from the Bronx. Worked at a newspaper, was sent over there to lead the Ukrainians as communists in a revolt against the Tsar. What's the same thing with Zelensky? He's a Ukrainian Jew, comedian, actor, blah, 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 entertainer, used by Washington, D.C. and the Republican Party, which is Washington, which is everything, to overthrow the Russians. Like, we're still doing the same shit. This is what we need to extricate ourselves out. But you don't believe me when I tell you that the Republican Party, overthrew the Russian Tsar with communism. You probably don't believe me. So let me just find you the article and I'll read it to you. I'll just read you this one article, and then you'll be like, oh, okay. It's a great article. I love this article. So this is what everybody needs to know. I used to be able to send stuff like this to politicians like Marjorie Taylor Greene and Donald Trump and people at the NSA, like what's his name? Oh yeah, what's his name? General Flynn. I used to see General Flynn arguing with Michael Hayden. And I'd be like, I used to harass both of them, and then I was taken off of X. I used to harass both of them by bringing up topics that were like, hey, what about World Trade Center 7? What about this? What about that? I mean, if you're really a patriot, Mr. Patriot, Mr. Uber Patriot, Michael Flynn, why don't you, I mean, wasn't Michael Hayden involved in that 9/11 stuff? Why don't you bring that up? Anyway, we're not talking about that right now. We're talking about the fact that the Republican Party, okay, that we are all voting for, is the group that overthrew Russia and brought in communism. And of course, this happened with Karl Marx in the Civil War. They brought in communism with Karl Marx. They tried to overthrow the Germans. I already went over that. It's this whole repeating thing. It hasn't stopped yet. It hasn't stopped. We haven't fully stopped it yet because we're still backing Zelensky to overthrow Russia again. But let's look at what happened in 1917. Here's an article from the New York Times published May 11th, 1917. And it says, warning to new Russia, Taft, a Republican president, Taft, former president, I believe, he was ex-president Taft, Republican, Freemason, and lover of the swastika. So I'll give you a little more background here. When I was a young man, I was looking into the story of the death of the Tsar. I found this old book, and in this old book, it talked about how the Tsar's marriage bed had been discovered with a swastika carved into it. And this is just a report that I read in a book that I've never since been able to find, and a book that I doubt that I ever will find. And at the time, I didn't understand why there was a swastika carved into it in 1917 or whenever this occurred. Why would there be a swastika carved into the marriage bed of the Tsar and his wife? And I thought, well, maybe that was because the Tsar, this was like a thing of the right wing. At the time, it was not. It wasn't until later I really discovered that Hitler, like, okay, if you watch a documentary on why did Hitler adopt the swastika, it's going to be a bunch of lies, okay? Whatever the story is of why Hitler adopted the swastika that you're hearing about on the History Channel or some other documentary, it's always going to be 100% lies. That has nothing to do with anything. Maybe there's some partial truths in there, but it really doesn't. The swastika was the symbol of the Social Democrats, which Hitler was a social democrat. And the reason it was a symbol of the Social Democrats throughout Europe was because, as I've told you many times in other videos, is that this new system that had developed, this whole capitalist system, this new commercial system, was a unification of central banking with communism. and their symbol was the swastika. And their symbol was the swastika before it was adopted by Hitler. And so the symbol of the socialists, the communists, before Hitler was the swastika. And it was the symbol of the Republican Party in the United States before it was used as a revolutionary symbol in Europe by the socialists. Before it was used as a revolutionary symbol by the socialists in Europe to overthrow monarchies and bring in socialism and communism, before that, it was used by the Republican Party, particularly Taft in 1908, I believe, 1908. Taft had the symbol of the swastika, along with a lot of U.S. corporations used the symbol of the swastika. So Taft had the symbol of the swastika, 1908. A lot of corporations had the symbol of the swastika. So it was these corporations and these commercial organizations that were allied with the socialists at the time in Europe to overthrow the governments and bring in a new system. This was the new Republican system coming to Europe and coming to Central Europe and coming to Eastern Europe. And so when the communists overthrew Russia and killed the Tsar, they apparently carved a swastika into the marriage bed of the royal family. That's apparently what happened. It appears to be what happened. Now later, Hitler adopted this symbol for the National Socialists. And so now that swastika actually was that swastika was a symbol for the Union of Soviet Socialist Republics before it was adopted by Hitler. Before it was adopted by Hitler, it was a symbol for the Union of Soviet Socialist Republics, used the swastika as the symbol of the socialist revolution. It was their symbol. It was on their money. It was on their money. So it was their symbol, and it was on their money. And it was in their books, and it was in it was part of their regalia, whatever you want to call it. Their symbols used by the new communist regime used the swastika. And of course, at that time, this Russian communist regime was heavily organized by Jewish mafia out of Ukraine. So then what happened was, with the rise of Hitler in the 1930s, and Hitler was also using the swastika, now the communist, so now this is like, it became identified with anti-Semitism and National Socialism. And so now it was becoming this thing that the Russians that weren't part of it, under Stalin, things had changed also. The Russians are like, no, that's not our symbol. Somewhere along the line, they adopted the hammer and sickle. So they I don't know how that happened, but they adopted the hammer and sickle, and they were no longer using the swastika. Hitler was using the swastika now. And America was starting to abandon the swastika at some point. They were still using it through the 1930s, but then they abandoned it. Anyway, I was going to read you this article. Warning to New Russia. Taft commends Jewish efforts for liberated people. Ex-President Taft applauded vigorously last night when Jacob H. Schiff at a dinner for the American Jewish Friends of Free Russia praised Theodore Roosevelt for his efforts while president to bring the Russian autocracy to a realization of the wrongs committed against Jewish subjects. So they're saying that Theodore Roosevelt, the Republican Party, Taft, Jacob Schiff are celebrating the overthrow of the Tsar because of his treatment of Jews. So Judaism is at the center of the overthrow, the motivation, the Republican Party's efforts to remove the Tsar and bring in communism. It says, there was another outburst of applause when Mr. Schiff, introduced by the Toastmaster as a Russian revolutionist. Schiff is a Jewish banker, head of Jewish banking cartels allied with Rothschild and the Warburgs in Europe. And the Rockefeller Standard Oil Chase Bank network. There was another outburst of applause when Mr. Schiff, introduced by the Toastmaster as a Russian revolutionist, asserted that, in his opinion, the abrogation of the treaty between the United States and Russia because of the discrimination against American citizens of Jewish birth was the inspiration, which, to a great extent, ultimately brought about the overthrow of the Romanovs. Let me clarify. So that's a fancy word, abrogation. Abrogation. See, everything I've been telling you about the Republican Party is true. I've been telling you the whole time because I've read this article. I read it a long time ago. I've been sending this through. I used to send it to all kinds of politicians through Twitter when I was able to communicate on Twitter. I was direct messaging this to them on Twitter. I was posting this on my timeline on Twitter, and sending it to them as a, I would put their name, I would address it to them. I would address a whole bunch of people at NSA, politicians, people that are connected to, political movements, Republican Party, people in the media. Anyway, abrogation. The repeal or abolition of a law, right, or agreement. So they had an agreement. This is the point. So here's the article. It says, to abrogate means to repeal or abolish a law, a right, or an agreement. So it's an abrogation of an agreement. It's the repeal or abolition of an agreement. So it says here, there was another outburst of applause when Mr. Schiff, introduced by the Toastmaster as a Russian revolutionist, this is the Republican Party, asserted that, in his opinion, the abrogation or the abolishment of the agreement of the treaty between the United States and Russia because of discrimination against American citizens of Jewish birth was the inspiration, to a great extent, ultimately brought about the overthrow of the Romanovs. So the Americans and the Russians apparently had an agreement. They had a treaty, which was broken. The abrogation of the treaty. It says it was abrogation of the treaty between the United States and Russia because of discrimination against American citizens of Jewish birth. So it was the Russians were discriminating against American citizens of Jewish birth. And this led to the abrogation of the treaty between the United States of America and Russia. Does that make sense to you? So we're gonna trash an American treaty between the United States of America because of Jewish people? This is what I'm saying. This has been causing problems for America for a very long time. And this is the Republican Party. So the Republican Party is breaking an agreement they have with the Russian Tsar over treatment of Jewish people. Then they're backing a communist revolt out of Ukraine led by Trotsky to go in and overthrow the Tsar's government. This is what I've been telling you the whole time. So it says, following the speeches, a resolution was adopted expressing confidence that Russia would not make a separate peace with Germany. So they want to keep Germany and Russia separate. Well, didn't we just blow up the Nord Stream pipeline that was bringing energy into Germany? Right. They want to keep who wants to keep Germany and Russia separate? Well, obviously, there's a lot of Jewish people involved in this contract, right? That's what it says. Jacob Schiff and the abrogation of the treaty because of the treatment of Jews and the Jewish mafia over there with Ukraine. So a lot of this is centered around Jews. So Germany can't have they want to keep Germany separated from Russia. apparently because of Jews. Jews want to. And we have to break this agreement between America and Russia because of Jews. And this is stupid. This is stupid. This is idiotic. This is idiotic. But this is why the West has been failing for so long. It says here, following the speeches, a resolution was adopted expressing confidence that Russia would not make a separate peace with Germany. Anyway, I'm not going to read you this whole article. I'll just read you the highlighted part at the bottom. It says, the revolution has come to the Tsar's government. The revolution has come. This is a communist revolt. The revolution has come. The Tsar's government has been swept away overnight. And the first act of the new government, God bless it, was to call home Russian exiles and to emancipate the Russian Jews. We do not know what may come hereafter, but this we do know, that never again will these rights be taken away. The Russian Jew has been liberated and will remain so forever. The dinner, which was held at the Hotel Astor, is that in Chicago or New York? Nice hotel. I think they tore it down, actually. Hotel Astor. They tore it down. I think it was in New York. Beautiful hotel. I don't think it's there anymore. God, that is something else, man. That is a fancy hotel. I mean, that is like, woo. It was in Times Square. They tore this hotel down. Well, I guess you reap what you sow. You used to have this nice hotel, and now you have a big toilet called New York. You reap what you sow. Anyway, the dinner, which was held at the Hotel Astor, was attended by 800 guests, among them Henry Morgenthau, ex-ambassador to Turkey, Dr. S. Meltzer of the Rockefeller Institute, Congressman Meyer London, Dr. Samuel Schulman, Boris Shatsky, a lot of Jewish names, Dr. Samuel Schulman, Boris Shatsky, unofficial representative in the United States of the new Russian government. Unofficial representative in the United States of the new Russian government, right? These are all Jews. Herman Bernstein and Dr. Julius Halpern, these are all Jews, made speeches. Edwin Markham and Robert Underwood and Johnson Reed. And Robert Underwood Johnson read poems written by them on the Russian Revolution. Mr. Taft praised the Jews for having retained their racial identity in the face of centuries of persecution and congratulated them on the Russian Revolution. Right. That's the Republican Party. So anyway, this kind of garbage, we can have normal relations with Jews, but whatever this stuff is, this has led to a lot of problems in the United States. It's led to the rise of Russia because this same group went in and built up. Led to the rise of China because this same group went in and built up China as the manufacturing base. This same group put Holocaust museums all over the world to demonize Germans and then white people in general and Christianity in general, working with the Romans because it's the Romans who run these things with the Jewish mafia. In other words, this has led to the total dissolution and destruction and eradication of Western civilization. This specific group. And so we have to get back to our own roots. Western civilization is not based on Judaism and the Talmud or any of that stuff. That's an alien thing. It's based on Athens. It's based on the Logos. It's racially based on the white race, which was in Athens and Germany and Britain and France and Italy and Spain and all of it. That's the core of it, whether you like it or not. Whether you like it or not, the core of Western civilization is the white race and Athens, the philosophy, the theology of Athens that came out of Athens, and also that came out of Egypt, which is where the Israelites got the Bible and the whole philosophy. So there is some introduction of the Orient through Egypt and in the Bible, but ultimately the core philosophy, the core ethnic core of Europe is Athens, is the Alexander the Great, is the Celtic and the German people of Europe. It's not anything else. It's not Muslims. It's not people from other countries. It's not people from Asia. It's not Jews. There's been a connection there for a really long time, but the core is the core of all of it. With the part you can't live without. To have Western civilization, there's one part you can't live without, and that is the white race. You can't get rid of that and still have Western civilization. You can't get rid of the white race, and you can't get rid of the Athenian philosophy of Athens, which is the logos. That is the core. It's so much the core that it was Theos dia Logos, which is the formula of Athens to reach God, that was written into the Old Testament. That's how much it is the core. That is the core. That's why it's not that. That's what I'm saying. Theos was written into the Bible as the God of Israel, because that's the core. That's the core. Yes, it's Egyptian. Yes, it's these old Israelite stuff that comes out of the Orient and comes out of Asia. But the core of it, of Western civilization, is Athens and the white race specifically. You cannot have Western civilization without the white race, and you cannot have Western civilizations without Athenian ideology. That's why I've been telling you about the logos this whole time. It's not some other god. It's not some delusional thing. It's not some delusion pushed. It's not some confidence game pushed by the Romans. It's not a confidence game. It's the logos. The logos is not a confidence game. The logos is your connection to Theos. It always has been. It always will be. It's not a confidence game. It's not some artifact. It's not some shroud of Turin that you have to believe in, and it's none of those things. It's the logos. That's the route. That comes from Athens. Our Greek forefathers, our patriarchs of Europe, figured this out in 500 BC. In 500 BC, they discovered the logos was the gateway to Theos. And that's really all you need to know. But that's the core of Western civilization. There is no other core. It's the white race and it's Athens. And the other races can participate in it, but you can't get rid of the central thing. If you get rid of the central thing, the other things won't perpetuate it. So with that, I'll end off.